Kenyan Media has been ranked as leading in cases of sexual harassment in Africa, with 1 in every 2 women in the media said to have faced physical and verbal abuse at the place of work. According to a survey by Women in News, Kenya was ranked leading in cases of sexual harassment at 56%. Some of the counties flagged for high prevalence of sexual harassment include Nairobi, Kiambu, Mombasa, Homa Bay, Busia, Migori, Uasin Gishu, Kisumu, Kajiado and Meru. Incidentally, the vice that was assumed to be rampant mainly in the informal sector is also thriving in the formal sector and especially the media.
There was this camera person who seemed nice. Of course, you are an intern, you're there trying to really put your best foot forward to show that you can deliver. So one day he called me behind some, our office was our office compound was not that big. So he called me mahali nyuma, like behind an office, somewhere that nobody could see us. So he just grabbed my hand. I was seated working on some show. Then he grabbed my hand and told me, "There's something I need to tell you right now, like right now." I thought it was something so urgent. And this is someone, he's like my boss because, he's now in a senior position. So, of course, I rushed out. I went to that place and he looked at me in the eyes. He was actually seated. He stood like this. And he told me, "Rose, when are you giving it to me?" So I was really passionate about media and I wanted these opportunities. Now, things are weird and it's I said no because I kind of walked out of him. So these are opportunities that I could not now start getting. He started denying me these opportunities. I remember there was a time everybody went out for a shoot and I was left in the office alone.
I had a bad encounter, so to speak, of a boss who actually doesn't respect your personal space. That boss who will want to touch you, will want to, those... he's too touchy. He'll want to say those lovey things to you, and when you keep off, it's termed, or he terms it as disrespect and not being good to him. So sometimes you can find yourself like even you're running a show and he comes in and he wants to touch you all over, and so when you push him or when you stop him, he says, or he'll claim that you are rude, you are not respecting him and all those stuff. And also you find that even the male colleagues at work, they'll want to touch you. They'll that touching in a irrespective manner, even without your consent. And they terms, or they think it is just normal to do such things or intrude in someone's personal space without their permission or without their consent. So it actually made us as women working there to have a very hard time, or the working environment was not also so good.
Personally, I've had 2 experiences from 2 different media houses, and the first one, I was working in the TV station, and this was with my director. It was not so easy. I remember when he made his advancement and I refused. I went almost 2 months without being assigned any duty. I could not go out to do my work because he would be the one who will give you the cameras and maybe the people who would go with you to the field, and so that you can do your story. So when I refused, for the 2 months, I did not do any story. Then there is this one day, we were in the studio. On that day, he assigned me to be on the camera. We were just operating one camera because it was one person. So after the interview, I was there busy doing the cleanup in the studio, and then all of a sudden the lights in the studio went off, and there he was. He told me, "You know what? We are just the 2 of us, and this is studio, so probably nobody will get to hear what we are doing. So are you giving it to me or not?" And I said no. He tried to force himself, but I told him, "If you do this, I'm going to scream." And I was having my phone, so I threatened like I was going to record. He decided to stop, but then our enmity went a notch higher. So the frustration continued. I could not dare to say it because I was afraid of losing the opportunity. I didn't know how people were going to react to it. I didn't know whether it was going to be turned on me, like maybe I'm the one who was making advancement on him. So It continued up to the last minute. I decided to quit.
My first encounter with sexual harassment was after I had had my second child, and it was a new place of employment. So I think I had been there for about a month, and we were having a meeting. It was inside a newsroom. We were having the brainstorming meetings, the planning meetings in the morning. So as someone is speaking, a message comes in on my phone. It's a WhatsApp message. I check, and then I see the name. It's one of the editors, the senior editors, and he's commenting on my legs. So the comment that I saw he had made on my WhatsApp group was really angered me, because it made me feel like I was a sexual product. It's a bad experience.
Unfortunately, female journalists in general do not report the sexual harassment incidents. Getting them to speak on camera was not easy. This is because of the myths and misconceptions surrounding sexual harassment, the sensitivity of the vice, and in most cases, fear of the repercussions. In most cases, perpetrators are senior officers with the power to frustrate their professional efforts, and in some cases, to hire and fire.
When I got another job, now as a reporter in the field, and the person who linked me with the job is my MD, where I'm working right now. I didn't know his intention when he was linking me up with the job. Later on, he came to reveal himself, and he told me, you know what, I want us to be an item. I remember there is a day he killed the news, and when I asked, he told me, you know what, if you continue to question why I'm doing what I'm doing, then be rest assured that I'm going to fire you, because, you know, I have the authority.
Most media organizations are in denial about sexual harassment and not willing to confront the reality. The Kenyan Media Sector Working Group, which brings together major stakeholders in the media sector, mandated the Association of Media Women in Kenya, AMWIC, to lead the war against sexual harassment in the media.
We came together and decided first to form an ad hoc committee. This ad hoc committee is made up of representatives from media organizations, but also we have a legal officer. We also brought on board a Federation of Women Lawyers, and also that's FIDA, and then we also brought FKE, Federation of Kenya Employers, and also we brought IREX to support in terms of psychosocial for victims of sexual violence. Basically, we are really looking so much into just working with the women and empowering them. And we realize also majority of the women that we've been working with are mostly from mainstream media. So under this IPDC program with UNESCO, we decided also to focus on community media houses. And that's why first we met women journalists from community media houses. And actually, it was very interesting to hear the unique kind of challenges they face when we talk about sexual harassment. And also we realized they face a lot of sexual harassment because of the thin structures of management. In the community media houses, because they're smaller, you realize maybe there's one center of power. This is the one who hires, this is the one who fires, this is the one who edits your work, this is the one who assigns you the job. So because of that, there's more vulnerability, and there's nowhere to go. If the owner of the media house is sexually harassing, who are you going to report him to or her to?
United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, which is the United Nations entity charged with the responsibility of safety of journalists, is working closely with AMWIC to particularly involve men in addressing sexual harassment. The International Programme for Development and Communication under UNESCO pays special attention to community media houses.
We approach the safety of journalists in the wider perspective, and one of the things that was raised during this consultation for the 10th anniversary of the UN Plan of Actions on the safety of journalists was the issue of sexual harassment in the newsrooms. And UNESCO conducted a research which is called the Chillings, which is on the online global trend on online violence against women journalists. And one of the key findings of the research is that 73% of women journalists who were surveyed have experiences online violence in the course of their work. So this is a very significant figures. And when we look at much more deeper to the issues, 20% of women journalists who have experiences online violence have had physical attacks in the reality.
Through the men-to-men engagement, the program has involved over 100 men across the counties. Men are now championing the call to end sexual harassment in the newsrooms.
Hili ni jambo ambalo limekuwa likiendelea kwa miaka mingi, lakini linaendelea kisiri. Na wale ambao wanadhulumiwa, tunaelewa kwamba wengi wao hawajakuwa wakijitokeza kueleza masaibu yao. Wengi wao wanasema kwamba hawako tayari kuzungumza kuhusu yale ambayo walioyapitia. Na kile ambacho kinahitajika ni kwamba ni kuhamasisha wanahabari, kuhamasisha wafanyikazi wote katika vyombo vya habari kuzungumzia kuhusu hili swala.
Gender-based violence is there, and the reason why it is still there is because people do not want to talk about it. The reason is there are so many myths and misconceptions surrounding it. So the people who are fallen a victim to this, speak out. Do not be embarrassed. It is not your mistake. Let's fight this together and put a cap to this issue.
Majorly in the media space is that young ladies, for example, who are coming in as new staff or interns will not speak out because they don't lose that opportunity. And also the media is so, in a way, sexualized that it's normal to have such things happening. For young men, is that the stigma associated with why should you report, why should you speak out that you've been sexually molested, harassed or exploited. So it's a real thing. Time for speaking out is now.
Aside from going to the HR, aside from telling off people in the newsroom, I also went and talked to one of the male bosses, because I realized, as much as we say equality, equity, empower women, we are still very patriarchal in nature, and by that I mean, people will not listen to you unless you're a man. I identified one male decision maker in the news. What made me go to him is that someone came to me and I didn't know what to do. A news anchor came to me and told me, Rachel, I have seen you're really talking about this thing. It's been disturbing me. I've been here for years and nothing is changing. And I can't work in the newsroom. I have to go and work in one of the offices of the directors, because every time I'm in the newsroom, this guy comes, he kisses me on my neck, it leaves saliva, it's so disgusting. He hugs me so tight. He sends me messages in the night. He's very intrusive in my space and I'm not comfortable. And you know, these are some of the reasons why women leave the newsroom. But sexual harassment disempowers you. Most of the time disempowers you, you don't know what to do. And that is why this person reached out to me, because she saw that I knew how to deal with it. But because I didn't know how, so when I went and talked to him, he said, he was shocked, and then he said, I'm going to talk about it in the next meeting. This cannot happen, this is unacceptable. So he called a meeting, I think a few weeks later, and he told of not the particular person that had been complained about. He said, I want to address every single person who thinks that we are here to have sex with each other. We are here to work. And if I ever hear a case like this again, you're going to have very grave consequences. And because it was said from a person in authority and a person who is a man, can you imagine the cases reduced?
Sexual harassment robs someone of their dignity as it instills fear and shame on the victim. The celebrity status of media personalities makes it even harder to report, despite some of them belonging to unions and other media associations that could speak for them. Kenya Union of Journalists is a stronger partner of AMWIC in the effort to end sexual harassment in the media.
A union fights for the rights of members and workers. So in this field of sexual harassment in the newsroom, we've got responsibility to fight against it. And also, we've got this convention 190 that outlaws sexual harassment and violence against anyone at work. So we also push for respect and ensuring that workers are in an environment where they feel safe, they feel not intimidated, and also feel that their rights are respected. So we also advocate for the respect of workers' rights. We also push through collective bargaining agreements to have clauses there that outlaw sexual harassment in place of work. So basically those are some of the things that we do, but also work with other partners to advocate and also to push for the rights of workers wherever they are working in the media.
It has been normalized in newsrooms that young people joining newsrooms are seen as flesh to feast on. Besides the supervisors, other officers and even news subjects fail to see them as professionals, but rather as sex objects.
Tuseme ni mtu kuogopa. Tuseme kwanza kama vile mtu akiwa ni intern mahali, unajua una matumaini kwamba utaandikwa kazi pale mahali. Kwa hivyo hata kama ni boss, kama ni yule editor ama yule supervisor, ana make hizo sexual advances ama na kusexually harass. Tuseme utaogopa kusema, manake labda hapo amekuahidi kazi, ama unaogopa ukisema utakosa ile kazi, na hapo una matumaini makubwa kwamba utaandikwa kazi. Kwa hivyo ndio maana watu wengi wao wanaogopa kujitokeza. Mimi nakumbuka kwamba kuna wakati nikiwa internship, yani unajua hautajua moja kwa moja wakati ule kama hujapata elimu, lakini sasa hizi nashukuru niko na elimu.
I have experienced sexual harassment in the newsroom and outside as well. I received very vile comments when I was pregnant, where I had a tag on my back where I was told that I was impregnated by a news source because apparently someone said it was the common practice for female journalists to sleep around to get favors from different people. These are comments that really shattered my mental health. I had to seek services from a psychologist to at least put my headspace back on track, because these are things that can really affect you, especially when it comes from people that sometimes you hold in high regard. You know, it can really affect a person. Also as well, in the field, it is very rampant from my own experience, what I've gone through. So it is quite a commonplace to be receiving sexual favors from certain news sources in exchange for news interviews. And once, maybe just before the interviews or after, you would get a news source trying to offer you some sexual advances. You know, they're telling you, this happens, it's a common thing, we see a lot of female journalists doing this, so why are you not accepting to do this? And you know, sometimes it gets so bad that they threaten to call your editors and say, you know, I can call someone, I can call your boss and say that you refuse to do one thing just because you have refused to accept my advancements.
There was also another time that I was shooting a very prominent, I don't know whether to call them a pastor or a bishop, but it was a very prominent person. So I got into the studio, and as usual, I had to apply some powder on his face and some lip balm, so that I can shoot. You know, when you're an interview, you're the one who is doing the makeup, you're the one who is doing literally everything. So when I was trying to apply powder on his face, he grabbed me and kissed me forcefully. Yeah. So at that time, I again was shocked. I was so shocked. It's like your body kind of, you cannot move your body. You are like, okay, what just happened? And that happened so quickly, and we were the only people in the studio.
Sexual harassment is real, and if anyone tells you it's not, I think they're lying. I had done my attachment, and I think I was going back from my attachment letter, recommendation letter back then, and I went at the gate and requested to go in and pick my attachment, my recommendation letter that is from my supervisor. But the man who was manning the gate, the guard at the gate, felt that it was okay for him to rub my boobs, and he continuously did that as he was trying to question me and ask me questions. And you know, I know I'm not the only case. I have had friends who had offered lunch dates and something, and you know, the manner in which they are trying to offer you this lunch date, it's not just appropriate. But people go through this because we want those attachments, we want to grow in our careers, and it's something that is so real.
The Media Council of Kenya, wielding the regulatory whip in advancing press freedom, acknowledges the fact that big media houses may have existing sexual harassment policies, but decries their implementation. The smaller media houses, on the other hand, lack the capacity as well as finances to develop many of the policies.
One of the things that we are mandated to do under the Media Council of Act 2013 is to promote press freedom and ensure a conducive working environment for journalists. Within this context, then, you can say that anything, whether internal or external, that affects negatively the working environment of a journalist qualifies to be described or defined as a press freedom violation. And therefore, to that extent, MCK as a regulator can intervene by helping in bridging the gaps within media houses where a media house has expressed a need, for example, saying that we do not have the capacity to develop a policy by ourselves, then the council can facilitate such a process.
It is clear that certain factors that contribute to sexual harassment in the workplace are as a result of many gaps that need attention. Staff need to be sensitized on their rights as employees of any institution and the existence of policies that guide and cushion them against injustices like sexual harassment. The Journalists for Human Rights, JHR, has been keen to partner with media houses to revise existing sexual harassment policies, develop new ones where none exist, and sensitize the staff on their existence.
We were trying to look at a mechanism that might be able to work, and within the Kenyan Media Sector Working Group, we were looking at different partners and who can do what. And so that's why it was easier to anchor these at Amwick, so that they could be able to lead the whole process. So one, looking at sexual harassment policies within newsrooms itself. And not just that, but also making sure that these policies are able to protect the victims, and just looking at what other interventions are needed or should be put in place to ensure the safety of the victim, and to also just ensure that even the perpetrators also are held accountable, because that is also very key. And as part of it also, again, through other partnerships within the Media Sector Working Group, we also realized that there was also a need for psychosocial support. And as we were trying to figure out how that would work, then we realized that one of the partners, IREX, had something in place already. They had a system that was working. So it was literally just looking at how Amway can be able to leverage on the different stakeholders, the different partners, to be able to have a solid plan that can be able to wholesomely work for the victim.
The model policy we've developed attempts to address the gaps. One of them is that we're explaining how the committee will be established, that it will not follow the normal bureaucratic process we have in the management structure. That in the newsroom you're sexually harassed, you don't need first to report to the editor, but you just need to go straight to the committee and inform them what has happened. We also explain what should happen if somebody is found guilty. And we're also saying what should happen to the victim if someone has gone through sexual harassment. So we recommend psychosocial, we recommend maybe someone to take time off from work. So basically the policy is able to take care of the gaps that we've already seen in the existing sexual harassment policies.
When people experience sexual harassment, many tend to go into solitude and are made to believe it is somewhat a consequence of their doing. Sexual harassment can cause serious harm on the victim's mental health, thus the need to speak up and seek help.
Stigma is very pervasive in society. So unless people are trained and told, when a GBV survivor speaks out and you start gossiping them, it traumatizes them. When a sexual harassment survivor speaks out and you don't take it seriously, it can even lead to mental health challenges. If people don't know this, then there's no point of asking people to speak out. Oh, let's speak out about sexual harassment, So that's one of the things we are learning and one of the things that we are intending to address. But aside from that also, in terms of creating a safe space, Amwick was a safe space for me. So right now I speak a lot to any woman who I come across and tell them, if you encounter such a thing, it takes only a call. And you don't even need to do it by yourself. You can have someone, a friend that you trust, do it on your behalf.
There's still a lot of work required to enable victims speak up, perpetrators change mindsets, and the entire community call out perpetrators to ensure justice prevails. Most of the people who suffered sexual harassment are not able to speak directly to the camera for various reasons. This confirms the underlying fears and shame that runs deep in our society. It is the responsibility of each one of us to deliberately and proactively call out the vice and work towards eliminating it from our midst.
We cannot be reporting about the rot in other sectors, in other areas, yet the rot is within us. It's with us here. So the cleanup need to start from us. If we are going to be the voice to the voiceless, then we also need to start from here. Let's not try to clean up the outside, yet inside is so rotten.
I think we have policies that we have put in place, but I think there's a bit of a knowledge gap. People don't know about these policies, and I feel like if we take most of our time educating our communities, our employees, that taking that chance of educating people, I think will take us a long way.
Those policies implementation is a problem. They are only there in the shelves of these offices, but implementation is a problem to awareness of people to take advantage of those policies.
Kama wadau katika kazi ya wanahabari, tunafaa kulivulia njuga, tunafaa kulichukulia hatua hivi sasa.
Female journalists deserve all the dignity and respect, and they should not be marginalized on sexual lines.
Speak about it. In your meetings, speak about it.
I was trying to brainstorm within myself. Will they believe me? That was the biggest question. Will they believe me? I don't have text messages. I don't have anything.
So the people who have fallen a victim to this, speak out. Do not be embarrassed. It is not your mistake.
I wish female journalists could come up, could be bold enough and speak and say no to what you think is not right, so that your personal space is respected and you stand for what you believe in.
Cha ziada kuwe na sheria ama sera ambazo zitaweza kulinda hasa wanawake ili kuweza kukabiliana na masuala kama haya.
We create some, peer-to-peer networks among the women journalists to share their own experiences, what's had work, what didn't, what are the good practices.
Let's talk about it. Where we can, let's talk about the people who've done it. And as an industry, let's also try to figure out how to not only protect the victims of this, but also just figure out how to not, I wouldn't even say punish, but bring the perpetrators to book or to account.
We have to do something about it. Let's not be quiet. Let's not be silent, or else it will still continue years from now. So let's do something about it for the sake of our children, if not for ourselves, for the sake of our children.
As a Media Council of Kenya, we provide the resources and the platform for these conversations to take place.
So of course, the men were complaining about was that, oh, the women look like they're available, or the women dress like this, they wear short clothes, they expose their chest and all that. Of course, we told them there's no excuse for sexual harassment. You cannot say I'm sexually harassing somebody because of the way they are dressed. That we cannot win the war against sexual harassment if we go just as women. We need the men on board. We need both men and women in the media to come together and stand up for ensuring that we are creating safer working spaces within the media organizations, and that we're also supporting efforts for press freedom, because a lot of times people don't see issues of sexual harassment as a violation to press freedom, and we are trying to make them to see it as seriously as it is.